Good day, my name is Rich Biby, and this is my tribe talk on my wicked problem, universal broadband access. I've been working on this for a good many years, and it's very near and dear to me. So we're going to talk through what the problem is, a little history on how we got here, what potential solutions have been identified not only by myself, but by many others in the industry. I had some decisions to make, talk through those, and finally what actions I'm taking, and some conclusions. Broadband access, to me, is no longer an option. So, what is the problem? Well, almost 42 million people in the United States, about 13%, lack access to broadband. 43% of lower income families and 16 million school-aged children do not have a broadband connection. Just by the way, the FCC defines a broadband connection as 25 megabits of a downlink and 3 megabits of an uplink. That means you can watch a movie up to 25 megabits of information coming in for you to consume, and you can transmit up to 3 megabits outward or upward, the uplink. That's a uplink is important if you're doing something that's a two-way communication, such as a Zoom meeting, telephone call, or whatever else. Downlink is important for how fast you want to enjoy your downloaded material. Slide me over there. So this is just a quick depiction of the United States. The areas in purple have less than 15% of the people have access to broadband communications, and the gray areas are greater than 15% of the people have access to broadband. So what's the problem? Okay, well, without broadband access, we really have many limitations. So we have what we call a digital divide, the haves and the have-nots. Educational resources are limited, and we saw that during COVID, which will come up again here shortly. And programs such as this, an online MBA program, online undergrad, online associate's degrees, without, to say nothing of high school, elementary school, and every other educational venue or level that we've seen over the last few years. No broadband, no access. Online banking has become a very large thing. That's a wonderful convenience of having broadband access. This is pretty interesting to me as I research this. Civic participation. I have a friend who is a county board member in Rappahannock County, and he nearly died of a heart attack. But when he was able to get to a certain degree of health, he could vote and keep the government of Rappahannock County with a full quorum at many meetings for almost a year of his recovery. And that's kind of scary because he's just about my age. Telehealth is important. Talking about heart attacks, I almost died 3 years ago, and in the middle of COVID. And telehealth was really a great comfort to be able to work with my doctors and work through my health issues to be healthy again and be here enjoying this program. Security, physical and personal. So if you have a storage yard or materials or trucks or building materials, internet and broadband is important for physical security, safety, and for personal security and safety. Whether it's that sketchy looking person that just started following you down the street, or if you have a heart attack and you need to call someone, having access to broadband enables personal and physical security. Which was also pretty fascinating to me as I got into it, and I've worked in this area a little bit previously with satellite technology, but broadband really does a great job of enabling all kinds of research. I was quite surprised to find out how much wildlife research is done and depends on broadband. We used to count everything from birds to foxes to bears, but broadband allows us to do that and to aggregate that data at a common location quite nicely. Agriculture is also very important, whether it's weather or as I've seen and worked on some projects in North and South Carolina. Broadband access is allowing precision agriculture, the application of chemicals and seed and all kinds of other farm-related activities with good broadband on a farm. And of course, we've been watching water quality and water levels with broadband for many years. Having access to broadband is important for all of these areas of research. And most probably commonly used, information and technology. Information and convenience. Whether information is access to the newspaper or social content or whatever it happens to be. And of course, convenience. Is Sam ready for me to pick him up at soccer practice? If Sam doesn't have broadband access or some kind of broadband access, I don't know. So it's just a great convenience for many people too. Most importantly, and really I think this was proven many times during COVID, commerce is really dependent on broadband access, whether it be banking or selling your products online or buying products online. Commerce is really dependent on broadband, and without broadband, good broadband, commerce is limited. Let's talk about how we got here. A little history. In the United States, the Bell companies installed and controlled and ran the telephone system for years and years, and really did a great job of preventing competition. Their only plant, their physical plant that was in place, was copper telephone lines, which are very limited in the amount of data and information that can be transmitted. In the 90s and early 2000s, DSL services were available. Maybe 3 megabits, as high as 5 megabits on a copper telephone line was available. But that was quickly, the demand quickly outgrew what DSL lines could provide. So we saw some competition begin to enter. We saw the LECs, as they're called, local exchange carriers, Verizon's or whoever you happen to have. We saw them begin to compete really for the first time, installing fiber optic lines to be more efficient. The the cable providers came in and started offering broadband services in addition to just telephone services. About mid-1990s, that really popped up. But the regulations did not require either of those companies to provide broadband services if they chose not to. If there weren't enough customers and the road miles were too many, they simply would not build that infrastructure due to costs and ongoing maintenance and ongoing operational costs. So the regulations did not force anybody to provide these services. In some municipalities, there's a small tax collected on the cable companies that provide services, but in general, there's really no requirement for equal access. They can come into a new development, a little townhouse community, for example, and provide just to that community and not provide services to everybody else, even if their cable is on the telephone pole in front of those other houses. So there's no incentive or requirement to cover. And then COVID happened. As we all know, we shut the government down, and we shut down our schools, we shut down our commerce, and it wasn't really a great experience. Without good broadband, all the things that we thought we wanted to do and could do were not available to us. We couldn't do Zoom meetings of classrooms. Well, we could, but that also had kids huddled together in the back of cars and in McDonald's parking lots to get broadband access. So in hindsight, having a good broadband network is really important, and it's very clear now. So we always know what we should have done, but looking back, it's always 2020. So what happened? The federal government went out and started making money available in small lots of allocations initially. But today there's over $70 billion that's available for companies to apply to be awarded or granted, available from NTIA, that's the National Telecommunications and Information Agency, FCC, Federal Communications Commission, directly from Congress. State governments usually the state governments receive money from the federal government and then makes individual awards. And of course, on some Indian reservations or tribal lands, the government often gives money directly to those tribal authorities to decide what's best for them. So most often, grants are made to municipal governments, and what happens is a private-public partnership is usually entered, where somebody comes with about a third of the money from private equity. Usually a company that's going to go out and build and operate the network will supply about a third, and about a third from the federal government. So that $70 billion is really working toward $210 billion of investment into broadband. That's the way it works. So, all right, I care deeply about getting broadband to as many people as possible. What am I going to do? I initially thought I would just go out and build it. I would go out and apply for the grants and work with some municipalities and build it. That's really not terribly realistic. Because I'm not a utility company. I do know about telecom, I know about pole attachments and all that other good stuff, but I'm not a utility company. So there's no way I could do this on a US-wide or a regional, maybe on a local basis, but it just really was kind of unsatisfying. So the cost, the equipment, the availability of equipment, the availability of fiber without being a large company, I wasn't really going to be able to be successful at this. And the human resources are definitely limited. There just are not enough people that understand how this technology works to go out and build the number of miles of fiber that need to be installed. So I got with some other folks, and we decided that the best thing we could do was to provide help to these municipalities that were struggling with something new to them, but that was kind of routine to us. So we had a bunch of common problems out there. Every municipality has the same problems. There's funding available. Which funding should I apply for? What areas do I not have service in now? What partners and vendors should I select? It's easy to get sold a bill of goods by somebody, but how are you actually going to make sure that you started with a good company and in the end they deliver? Who's going to actually deploy the system? And then lastly, really, who's going to make sure that the system continues to operate? Another thing that popped up that I found quite fascinating, people talk about working at large law firms. This is an example I think presented earlier, where the law firm gives away, say, 1,000 computers that they're upgrading. Okay, that's great. That's very nice of them. But then the people that now have access to broadband may not know how to use the technology. So having a broadband connection itself is not really enough. It's the technology fluency that goes with it that's important, additional training. So the decision became clear. We're going to go out, we're going to create answers to these common questions that everyone has. Everyone's in the same situation, has the same problems, the same questions. We're going to create common answers. How are we going to do that? Well, I went out and founded the Biby Foundation for Rural Broadband back in 2015. We are a 501c3 organization recognized by the IRS. We've been around now 8 years. Haven't really had a chance to dig in the way that I intend to, but we have gone out and had many meetings with municipalities. I've engaged some like-minded people to help with the research that needs to be done of what funds are available, what are the requirements of meeting the requirements of the grant, timeline, number of miles, all the details. So how are we going to research what needs to be done? So we've gone out and met with a number of municipalities and already made a pretty good positive impact, I believe. We've got a lot more to go out and visit, but what we're coming up with is that we may go out and consult, hopefully paid, at least get our out-of-pockets back, with a number of municipalities and really learn what they're concerned about and what is going on in the field. And from that, we can really create kind of some common documents or training slides, sessions, recordings, and probably end up giving those away. We have enough skills and talent, and there's enough need that there should be enough income. And as a 501c3, we are soliciting donations. So overall, in conclusion, broadband access for all is extremely important, and to me it really provides a great level playing field. It brings opportunities to everyone, not just those that have broadband, not just those in the city, but to everyone. This is pretty important to me too, that it helps eliminate any bias. No one knows how old you are, what sex you are, what religion you might be. No one knows anything when you are on a keyboard doing professional work. It is a great equalizer of information and possibilities. And that is why I've worked on this for years, and I intend to do so every day I can with the rest of my days on this planet. References, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.